Good evening, or good afternoon, depending on your bias. I'm going to open the call the meeting to order. And we have the agenda in front of us. We're to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Sanik. Any additions, deletions, omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the agenda, passes unanimously. Confirmation of the minutes of the meeting of ARC on Thursday, May 24th, 2018. Any omissions, mistakes, and other things of that sort? I see Councillor Sanik doesn't think so, so she just moved it. And Councillor Shell thinks, nah, why not? I'll second it, okay. Item 4, disclosure of pecuniary interests. Anybody capable of making money off of any of this? No, in ARC it's usually pretty easy to avoid that. Seeing none, we move on. There are no delegations. There are no briefings. I get to the item 7, business, and 7A is allocation policy updates. I won't read the motion right at the moment, but I will ask staff. I expect they have something to say. So please progress. Just introduce yourself and all that sort of thing, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the committee, Jacqueline Grimman, Manager of Recreation Programs. So here we have 2 updates to 2 existing policies, our ice allocation policy and the sports field allocation policy. Both of these policies haven't been updated since 2010, so certainly the need was there to look at those in detail and provide some updates. As well with the new public engagement framework, we took the opportunity to go out to all of our stakeholders, user groups, and get their input into this process as well. So just with regards to the policy updates, a number of different things to bring them up to date, updating them to the accessible format. We've done that. You'll see that in the attached 2 exhibits. A lot of the definitions were inconsistent between the 2 policies, so we've cleaned that up in both those as well. We did introduce in 2016 an interim cancellation policy, so we've made that reflective in the new policies as well. And we've suggested a recommendation period of 5 years. Further to that, we know that there's certainly other areas that we're still looking into, and as part of the update to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that we're working through right now, we'll be addressing some of those other areas that don't fall into either the ice or the sports field categories. So things like parks, marinas, pools, and those different areas will be addressed through that process. Happy to answer any questions.
Has the committee got any questions? Councillor Shell. I'm
afraid to turn this on. Yeah, it's going to do this. To try. It's mostly, I noticed there's a part about you have to apply. I realize this is all, a lot of this is about scheduling and trying to make sure that groups are moved, placed, that there must be a lot of times that there's conflicts with groups, and I'm sort of leading to tournaments. I would imagine you have tournaments that let you know 2 or 3 years in advance. But the scheduling, you only need months in advance, normally. So how do you handle that? It's sort of a big question, but it's at the core, I think, of a lot of this policy because it's about allocation and trying to make sure everybody feels they're being fairly treated, even though we really do, to keep things moving, need to bump locals in a way for tournaments. So is part of the policy telling people they can or can't book like years in advance, or how do you handle that part?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Schell. So certainly with respect to tournaments, there is a historic element for bookings as far as the allocations go. When we do look at new tournaments coming on board, we do assess that with regards to the historic bookings that may be in that place. There is a bit of a hierarchy as well in terms of the impact or the significance of the tournament, whether that's a national or provincial scale. That certainly changes things. But what we've been very successful in doing is with our sports user groups, we meet very regularly and seasonally with them to set up a meeting around the tournaments where we review that with all the user groups so that if there is any potential conflicts, we can sit down with them at that time, and a lot of those issues really get worked out, and some groups will kind of back off from a weekend so that another one can use it, and that's been very successful. So it hasn't always been the staff saying, yes, you can have it, no, you can't. We've kind of worked with the groups to find dates and things that can work for everybody.
That's good, because I realize it must get very difficult at times. And it occurred to me, do you sort of use other cities as models? Are there kind of standardized spreadsheets that you talk to each other about?
Definitely, yeah. We reach out to a lot of other municipalities, similar-sized municipalities. We are connected through the Parks and Recreation Ontario group as well. So we, part of this was going to a lot of those municipalities and looking at their best practices and how they allocate. Nobody, I would say, is doing it perfectly. Everybody's always looking for, new ways of making sure they can accommodate everybody. But at the end of the day, I think the revisions that we've suggested really kind of assist in moving forward and making sure that we can accommodate all the different groups.
Councillor Stanek?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So I'm looking at page 31 and the need for portable washrooms. I didn't hear any complaints this year, but I did last year, and it was Cataraqui Arena, the baseball field there, and it was the first tournament of the year. And it looks like the person who was hosting the softball tournament, they didn't know that they were responsible for the washrooms. And then it was like Public Works had the washrooms, but they hadn't dusted them off, and there was no toilet paper, and it was just all really bad. And this year I didn't hear about it, but maybe they didn't have the tournament at the same time, or maybe it all worked out. So we're in 3.15.2.5, right, where it says, should city staff identify a need for portable washrooms, the permit holder will be required to provide these at their own expense. I think what happened there was that, I don't know what softball league it was, but the information only went to the president of the softball league, not to the coach, who was actually the organizer of it and hosting, but it was the coach who had submitted the forms. So can we try to make sure we can still send an email, right, to, if it's Kingston Thunder or whatever the group is, but also directly to the coach? I just don't know how that miscommunication happened, but we had teams from Toronto, and those parents had to drive the kids to Tim Hortons to use the washroom because the arena itself was locked. And I just think what happened in 2017 was horrible, and I never want to see that repeated again. So, if the person who actually submits it could get the information directly so they're not dependent on the president of that association giving the information down, and maybe that happens automatically and something happened in that course, but he didn't get the information, and it just looked bad on Kingston.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, certainly I'm hoping that was an isolated incident. When we do work with any of the tournament providers, we do kind of have a checklist that we go through with them to make sure that we cover off on things and the need for portable washrooms and different areas like that. So that is something that the staff have been following up on. What we've also done with our booking request forms is we've kind of mandated the necessity for two primary contacts, a secondary contact for each organization. So it's not just, in that case, the president that we're communicating with. We would also be communicating with their head league scheduler or tournament scheduler to make sure that we cover off on those bases. No pun intended.
Thank you. And my second question is about ice time allocation at Center 70. We're still using Center 70 a lot for hockey, are we? Because somebody said to me just last week when it was the big ball hockey championships, oh, Center 70 is not being used for hockey. What's the city going to be doing with it? And it's like, no, I think one of the AAA teams, that's where they have all of their games. So we're still doing lots of ice time allocation at Center 70, are we?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, that's correct, but it's one of our facilities that operates essentially during prime time hours, so 4 o'clock to 11 o'clock on weekdays and then weekends. So there isn't, it's locked up during the daytime, but evening and prime time use is consistent, and that will continue.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, I've got one governance question. And that is, a few years ago, we had lots of fun with this file. A few years ago, we had lots of fun with this file, with hockey arenas and so on. I guess that was more than before 2010. And so I'm just wondering, just in general, so that we would be prepared if anything happens, where are most of the difficulties in accommodating people and being able to allocate things occur in this file? And you can opine on whether you've covered it or not, but in case a call comes in, I'd like to be some idea where the hot points might be.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I'll ask Ms. Grimmin to add if I don't touch on everything. I think we've come a long ways with our partner groups, and they're more willing to work together, and that they'll give up some time to receive some time on another weekend. We are seeing a trend in terms of our local users tournaments happening typically from that October, sometimes September, but typically October until March. And then there's a bit of a lull from the tournament and a quiet time, certainly on the ice side of things. And then we have some third-party tournament organizers that come in and run a number of major tournaments at the Invista specifically when it's operating in that May-June time. And then what we're seeing, we're doing our maintenance shutdown this time of year typically, and then the hockey camps start. So, I think everyone's on the general understanding of how the schedule has, and that's all coming as a result of the Invista Center and the four-pad facility there, and how that's changed, how the ice has been allocated, and the convenience of having 4 pads at one location and what can be done on that site. So I think that is starting to find a groove, if you will. Certainly there are challenges. One that we've just dealt with recently was we had an opportunity to host a speed skating national training camp the first week of January. That can only be held on our Olympic-sized ice pad at Cataraqui. Kinsman facility. So there was another tournament that was going on, but we worked with the organizer of that tournament to get up, and the speed skating organization was willing to spread out their time. So as long as they got the 40 hours over 5 days, it didn't have to be over 3 days, then they could do that and attract national speed skating talent here to coach. And we worked with staff at SMG and at the Leon Center to free up some time there. So we were there are a number of parties, probably 6 in that case, that work together to make it happen. So I think everyone is moving in the right direction on the ice side of things. I think we're trying to find a balance on some of the baseball organizations, mostly on the youth side, to access some of our facilities. We're finding some of our facilities aren't meeting the needs of some of our baseball groups. just the technology has changed, you know, aluminum bats, even kids can hit the ball further. So we're growing out of some of those assets, and that's something we're doing right now as part of our Parks and Recreation review is, you know, and reaching out to those baseball organizations. What is the requirement now, or where do you see it going in the next 5, 10, 15 years so that we can plan accordingly, look at our current assets and adjust those facilities as necessary. And then same on the rectangular fields, so the soccer, the field hockey, lacrosse, ultimate frisbee, rugby, and how those integrates. And you know, that's certainly, there's a hot time when that takes place, typically in June to September, that aligns with our sports field allocation on the rectangular fields. But I could say, and I came in shortly after this was adopted in 2010, or just it was adopted actually. And I think everyone's working together to make it happen, and groups are willing to trade up and adjust time and make it best to make sure that mostly, in most cases, the youth are being active and have access to the fields at appropriate times. But, you know, there's challenges today. A lot of organizations canceled because of the heat. So, you know, we can't predict the rain, we can't predict the heat, but everyone will adjust and improve and try and make up those times as necessary. So I think, to wrap it up, everyone's playing nicely at the moment. We do recognize that there are some areas to improve, but I think through the analysis of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and the specific needs of those groups, we'll be able to identify some further improvements in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. It's Ms. Grimman, is it? Did you want to add anything?
I think Luke kind of covered things very well, but yeah, I guess just a little bit more detail about the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update process. We did recently conduct an open public survey, but we have identified the need for a separate user group survey. So we are going through that process right now, looking to launch that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then we've got some focus groups specific to our sports and ice groups that will be coming up late August as well, just to kind of dive into some of those details a little bit deeper and kind of flesh out some of the things that we've talked about. So yeah, thank you.
Great, well, that sounds good to me. And I suppose clarity of the policies and the improvements we've made in the last decade has really helped that too, so everybody knows what the playing field, no pun intended, as Ms. Grimman would say, is clear to everyone. Okay, I saw Councillor Sanik.
Just one last question about tournaments. For blue boxes, for water bottle recycling, that sort of thing. I don't see it mentioned like under tournaments, and I know that's also like a public works, like they're the ones that would supply it. So I also know too that a few years ago there weren't any blue boxes, but last summer for sure with the soccer tournaments, people were saying to me at work, right, that the blue boxes were there and everything was so good. So is that for the organizers of the tournaments to ask the city for, or are we now as a city basically supplying the blue boxes around the sports fields when there are those really big soccer tournaments, for example?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've identified now within the last few years that the city has the special events office, that tournaments certainly are special events, and so we've worked with that group and our facility booking office to ensure that we've got a bit of a cross-reference checklist that we can work through with them to ensure things like washrooms, adequate garbage, recycling facilities are covered off. If there's tent structures that need building permits, those types of things. So we do treat them as special events so that we can make sure that they're well equipped to handle the crowds that do show up.
Thanks. I'm just so happy to hear them blue boxes are on that checklist for tournaments. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll read the recommendation and then, we have to have comments from the public. The poor clerk had to tell me twice. Comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks to the staff for the report and the committee for the questions so far. One question is connected to some of the points that have come up so far, and I'm wondering if you have a capacity utilization report on an annual basis for, say, your ice pads and sports fields, and if so, if that's available publicly. Like, say you have so many thousands of hours on, say, rectangular sports fields, diamonds, and rinks, and those are, say, during certain hours and what capacity is being used. So that way we can actually know what the facts are and they can be discussed. You just hear various things in the community. Oh, there's not enough rinks available or not enough fields or whatever, right? So, and I've never seen any data like that. Second question comes directly off one of the questions asked by a member of the committee, and I'm wondering if you have data on how much time is lost due to bad weather or poor field conditions, and if you track that annually. Next question is, now I've just heard this and I want to see if it's accurate or not. I'm sure everybody's heard of the Memorial Cup hockey tournament. It was actually created by a Kingstonian, Captain Sutherland, 100 years ago. And there's been interest in bidding to have it in Kingston. And the host city gets their team in automatically, so it'd be a wonderful event to have here. But what I have heard is with the Leon Center, the renamed K-Rock Center, that we couldn't host it there because we don't have 4 distinct dressing rooms available. We only have 2. So I'm wondering if that's accurate, and also just to follow on from that, with the Leon Center, we're bidding for the Brier in 2020, right? And there's an expanded number of teams now with the Brier, I guess up to 16 or so. So I'm hoping we get the bid. It'd be a wonderful event to have. And we had the Scotties here. That was fantastic as well. I watched some of that in curling. But do we have enough dressing rooms in the facility, the Leon Center, to be able to handle an event like that? I know our bid is really strong. The people are really in the community. And then I want to just offer some praise to the level of facilities we have. We heard recently that Jenna Hefford of Kingston is going to be going into the Hockey Hall of Fame. So this is a fantastic achievement for her. And she was developed in Kingston as a player. She's won awards with Team Canada many, many years. And she's also a pioneer developer of players. So she's putting back into the sport. She's using all these facilities to host her events. So I just think that's a very strong, I guess, kudos and accolades for Kingston, having produced one of the greatest players of all time. So we should feel good about that. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're back to the committee. And I will read the recommendation. And that is that the Arts, Recreation, and Community Policies Committee recommend that Council adopt the ice allocation policy and guideline and sports field allocation policy and guideline updates attached as Exhibit A, draft ice allocation policy, and Exhibit B, draft sports field allocation policy, to report number ARC 18003. So, mover, Councillor Neal, seconder, Councillor Sanek. Any comments? Councillor Neal.
Just one very quick comment, and it's understandable that it wasn't addressed in the information here, but I know that the Bell Park working group is working towards a recommendation that will come forward later that will impact this information here. I'm just curious, I know we have been lobbied heavily and rightfully by the Rugby Panthers, but we've also, all of us, received emails from pointing out that the single strongest lobby group for a single sport was the rugby group. But if you look at how many people for a variety, 3 or 4 different naturalized uses of that park, that would have been the majority. So And I don't know if Center 70 is a potential future site for a rugby pitch or a couple of rugby pitches, but I know that that'll be a consideration when it comes forward.
Councillor Neal,
So
I'm not sure this,
I'm trying to sneak in a question
you.
to staff that,
if you can make it apply to the allocation policy, great.
so
And then I will leave it up to staff to somehow
Will-
respond in kind.
will the direction that comes forward from the working group in the public sessions allow you to modify this to address those concerns? How was that, Mr. Chair? Did I sneak it in there?
Oh, that was very sneaky. Thank you. Staff?
I will, through you, Mr. Chair, I'll try to address, and if I need to clarify, please do. Any additions to Bell Park in general, I don't see any updates to the allocation policies presented tonight. We will continue, and to answer one of the member public's question, we do complete utilization rates, and that's something that we need to take into consideration. I'm continuing to meet on a regular basis with the rugby club to look at options that might not include Bell Park. We are certainly going down the path as directed by council to address the list of items within the report from last year. But that being said, I think we need to make sure that what we're presenting in terms of options is what the community is looking for. So we've got a long ways to go on the Bell Park process, to be honest. And we'll be doing some more work over the summertime and further consultation likely in the fall based on the feedback that we just received. The surveys closed last month where we had great participation. About 350 people participated, but I'm not sure it's the feedback. The feedback or the questions themselves, I think, need to be changed in order to receive appropriate feedback that we could recommend something to council. All that being said, I think on the Bell Park file, it won't be applicable to the policies that are here in front of you tonight, but we do have some work to do on the Bell Park master plan process.
Thank you.
Okay. That was the only comment. I take it. So all those in favor of the recommendation? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Oh, the clerk gave away his copy to Councillor Neal, I think is just lately into town. So we're sharing. And there's a reason why that doesn't happen usually, apparently. So on item 7B, a pilot project to promote local music and musicians. And there's a four-paragraph recommendation, which I won't read yet, but I presume staff have something to say about this.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. This is a report that's been a long time coming, but happy to have it before you for consideration this evening. This stems back to a motion from council to ask staff to look at the opportunity to promote local music and musicians through various city platforms. Originally, it was based on the idea of an initiative out of the city of Ottawa called Op Music, where music is played through their call waiting system. Back in 2016, through the Arts Advisory Committee, there was a local music on city properties working group that was appointed to look into this initiative, and they came back with a lengthy sort of findings report that is attached to this as Exhibit A, and staff have subsequently used that as the basis to create a set of terms of reference to carry this work forward. Just a couple of points to highlight. This is being proposed as a pilot project at this time because this is a somewhat dynamic area in terms of the way local music and the local music scene is evolving. And we also have the opportunity to partner with the Kingston accommodation partners partners to bring this forward so that it has some more robust backing behind it. So in order to carry this pilot project forward, we're actually proposing that we, on the City of Kingston side, work through the Arts Advisory Committee to solicit the content for 2 playlists, one traditional and one contemporary, and then we'll be working with the Kingston accommodation partners who will be developing the technological part of this, likely in the form of a widget that will be made available through their website and also carried over to the City of Kingston website. And through both platforms, we'll be able to create more promotional and profile information about the musicians that are featured. So because there's a number of moving parts here, we felt it was important to do this initially as a pilot project, and as the report indicates, that we will intend to come back within 12 months of the launch to report back on the success of the project or things that may need to be reviewed for future consideration. So great partnership opportunities emerged in the time it's taken to bring this report forward, and with your support, we're looking forward to creating this platform to profile our dynamic local music scene.
Well, thank you. Questions? Councillor Neal?
Very quickly, thank you very much for bringing this forward. I have to say it was my motion, and it's been about 3.5 years, and I know that I have buttonholed you a couple of times to ask you about the progress of this, but I appreciate that it's come forward as it has. I look forward to not walking by the rink and listening to a radio station, but actually having an opportunity to hear Kingston musicians. So I look forward to that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was going to say, but you're done, so you're definitely finished now. Councillor Schell, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's about the budget. Was that created sort of with the knowledge of what Ottawa went through?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the budget was developed based on the recommendations that came forward from that original working group, trying to take into consideration some of the costs that they anticipated. So at this point, the Cultural Services Department has carried that amount in our budget as approved. We are, I think, going to find that it may not be sufficient, which is, again, partly why this is a pilot project, because we are now relying on the Kingston accommodation partners to make this reality. So that'll be part of what we look at, is coming back to make sure that the artists are being adequately compensated for their work and any other unanticipated expenses that might emerge from the program.
Good. Because I was reading the numbers thinking, ooh, $50 per artist. And I presume one of the ideas would be that the artist names could be in the music. Like, it starts to feel a little complicated than just pulling, you know, a piece of music from an artist, because they're not going to be in a studio, you know, doing their music for us. It's going to be pulled from various places that the artists have obviously already recorded. But when somebody puts it together, I presume they're going to need to put the artist's name in, and next is.
So there are some technical details to work out, but the plan at this point is that we're going to be focusing on artists who are not already signed to a record label, so independent artists, and so we'll actually be looking to them to provide the sound files that are required, and then we'll be uploading that into a widget like SoundCloud, which will provide them the opportunity as a playlist function to give the artist's name and the title. And we're also planning that both on the CAP website and the City of Kingston's website, that there'll be a landing page for this project that will create opportunity to actually profile the artist in more depth. So if you can listen to the playlist online, hopefully we'll have some uptake with our colleagues that the playlist will be made available through some of the city properties, and then you can go to the 2 websites to find out more specific information about the artist. So really it's about taking people who are sort of more at an entry level and helping to give them the profile that they need to maybe move on to another level. And that's something that Cultural Services has been doing quite regularly over the last number of years, often with events like Rock in the Square we'll contract a local act or artist to open for the headliner and then give them the opportunity for that kind of exposure. And certainly we found that with Gloria's Sons, who I think about 4 or 5 years ago opened for one of the performances, and we paid them $250, and then they played to a sold-out show at K-Rock more recently. So we see this as a great opportunity to just bring profile to these artists.
I hadn't realized that was the background, and I think that's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, committee? Let's see, I've got a couple. I'm surprised that Councillor Stroud is not here, since he used to be part of the local music scene. Maybe that's why he's not here. I have a couple of questions, just for clarity in case someone should ask. I did not understand the reference to city staff raised concerns about providing specially programmed content through the call waiting system because of the desire to reduce call wait times overall. Now, there was another reason given, but I always thought you were just cut off, whether it was 10 seconds or 10 minutes, you're out of there. Like somebody picks up the phone, and you don't get to hear the rest of the song. So I'm not sure what that means.
In response to your question, Mr. Chair, that came forward in consultation with our communications colleagues, and this does go back a little while when, at that time, communications was using information radio, and you would get that kind of information when you were on hold, but the desire was, in terms of service standards with the City of Kingston, that we would not leave people waiting on hold for longer than necessary. And so it seemed counterintuitive when we were consulting with communications to create content that people might actually want to stay and listen to when they're actually phoning in on the city's phone system to have questions answered and to make inquiries. So that's how the things evolved towards focusing more on an online platform as well as city properties.
I always thought that would have just whetted their appetite. You know, what was that? How do I find out about that? Besides, you don't control the system, so even if I want to listen to this song, it doesn't matter. No, I just don't get that. Anyway, I'm just interested a bit, because this is something we might hear about, is the defining of local, which I don't actually have any objections to, but 150 kilometers is a long way away, relatively. It's on page 48 in the middle, part C.
So there's two documents, Exhibit A and Exhibit B. In Exhibit A, the original working group went through quite a few different considerations about how to define local. And in creating the terms of reference, I made the decision to focus on the 50-kilometer radius, which is what they sort of came to at the end of their deliberations. So just to clarify, the actual radius is 50 kilometers, not the 150 that's quoted higher up in that same section.
Okay, sorry, I made the mistake of thinking that the exhibit was in line with the discussion, which quite often isn't the case. So, okay. And we're going to have a committee. We don't know how it's going to be chosen yet. You can correct any of this.
In answer to your question, Mr. Chair, the committee is to be, or the working group to be specific, is to be appointed through the Arts Advisory Committee. So the original local music on city properties working group completed their task and was dissolved. And so what this terms of reference proposes is that the Arts Advisory Committee will now assemble a local music working group who will be tasked with curating the playlist that will then be made available.
Great, thanks. Thanks for clarifying that. Anybody else? Seeing none, now we have to go to the public. And so is the public, anybody in the public have anything to say? No. Okay, back to the committee. Any comments? No. Any questions? Because Councillor Neal already said his comment. And I would just say I'm really happy to see this too. Okay? And it's pretty exciting. It could be really good. I don't know how quality will be determined, but presumably there'll be a sieve through which people have to pass by the looks of things. So we'll just see how that works. Won't hurt us to have a bit of controversy, I don't think, if that happens. And so I have to read, that's the recommendation, that the Arts, Recreation, Community Policies Committee recommend the council approve the terms of reference for a pilot project to promote local music and musicians as described in Exhibit B. The council directs staff to implement the pilot project to promote local music and musicians in collaboration with the Arts Advisory Committee and the Kingston Accommodation Partners based on the terms of reference as approved. Commissioner of Community Services or the cultural director as is her designate under delegated authority be authorized to execute any legal agreements as needed to the satisfaction of the Director of Legal Services to enable the City of Kingston to work with local artists and Kingston Accommodation Partners to support the pilot project as proposed. That council directs staff to report back with future recommendations regarding the pilot project to promote local music and musicians no later than 12 months following the project launch. Okay. Anyone wish to move that? Councillor Schell. Second, Councillor Neal. Any comments? Councillor Neal.
Yeah, now I have questions. So I'm doing everything in reverse today for some reason. I'm just curious, as far as, will we be, once the working group is established, will we be, through social media or through print media, be putting out a call for submissions within the community?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. The idea is to then work with our communications colleagues to issue the call out, and we still need to finalize some of the details about how we'll receive that content, but certainly we'll promote it as widely as we can.
Thanks again.
Anyone else? Not seeing anyone. We have the motion on the floor. So all those in favor? Passes unanimously. So we're on to item C, 7C, report received from the Arts Advisory Committee. I have to advise the appointments to the Mayor's Arts and Awards Nominations Working Group. I have to advise the committee that one of the names, Alex Jansen, there is dropped out. So the clerk says we can accept that as a friendly amendment, and so it'll read that Dave Coombe be appointed as a member of the public to the Mayor's Arts Awards and Nominations Working Group, term expiring November 30, 2018. So, do I have a mover? Councillor Schell, second by Councillor Sanik. Any comments? Seeing none. Anyone? So all those in favor? Okay, it passes. Part 7D, report received from the Housing and Homelessness Advisory Committee. There's two parts to this, so we'll deal with DI or D1, and I suspect Mr. Laidman has something he'd like to say.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if I really need to go through this in any depth. This is just the report that the clerk's office, along with the vice chair of the Housing Committee, has put together, summarizing the work of the committee this last year. And I think the committee's now gone to a quarterly meeting, so they did have less meetings, but they still did review a number of reports, including what I would describe as the most major item of reviewing the success of the homeless system after the first 3 years. So that's a synopsis provided by the vice chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I don't think think this is just for information, right? This is just for information anyway. Well, it goes to council. And it goes to council. Oh, the recommendation is above, yeah. So it's going directly to council according to clerk. We don't have to pass it. Yep, no, we do. We do, okay. So someone will move the recommendation, Councillor Neal. Councillor Shaw will second. So, any comments? Not seeing any. Okay, I think we should just pass this recommendation. So all those in favor? It's passed. And then the second part. Recognition of Mr. Jackson. Yeah, I got that. So D2 is recognition of David Jackson, former committee chair, Housing and Homelessness Advisory Committee. Let's council recognize the outstanding contribution of David Jackson to the Housing and Homelessness community. Moved by Councillor Neal, second by Councillor Sanik. I just have one comment. I worked with Mr. Jackson for 29 years, and he was involved in so many housing initiatives in the city, like one right after another. And he's involved a lot more than I knew about. So I think that this recognition is well deserved. It did a lot of good work. I know we did a lot of good work with the organization I was with. We were set up, that is prepared, a lot better than a lot of housing projects. So I think he did the same with all the ones he was with. So I just wanted to say that. So Councillor Neal?
Thank you. I met David in 1990 when Mary Fleming convinced me that I should accept a role with the Cataraqui Co-op, which was just in the planning and stages at that time. And for a brief period, I was the president of the board. David was renowned right across Eastern Ontario. You can't go to a community where there's affordable housing in whether it's Ottawa, Cornwall, Brockville, Belleville, Peterborough, that David wasn't involved in as a consultant or worked through, and he will be sorely missed. So, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, so did we get a mover or something? Okay, fine. Okay, all those in favor, it's passed. Okay. So, part 8 is the motions. We don't have any. So, part 9 is, item 9 is notices of motion. We don't have any. We don't have any other business, I don't believe. We don't have any correspondence. The date of the next meeting is September 27th, 2018. Don't go crazy over the ensuing 2 months or more. Okay. So that's it. We have a motion to adjourn. Councillor Shell, Councillor Sanik will second.